Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today we're going to have Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and John Kasich, the current governor of Ohio, running against, like I said before, Bernie Sanders. So it's just going to be a matchup. It's going to be 2016/2020 because of essentially I think the results would be the same. I think that the Trump part of the Republican Party would feel cheated. They have all the energy on their side, and I do think they will feel cheated regardless of the year. I think it may be a little worse because he is the president in 2020, but then again, you'll still have that same type of retaliation in the 2016 primaries because the Trump side of the Republican Party was so vast, and if Kasich was able to beat him through an open convention, because that was the only way he could ever beat him, he couldn't beat him delegate-wise, so I think they would still feel cheated. If we look at the 2016 electoral map, remember that Trump carried the Rust Belt, carried Ohio, Kasich's home state, even though he didn't carry Ohio in the primary. So that was a little special of a case. He gained a lot of support there. He didn't win Iowa in the primary either, and he won the state. So let's keep going through this map. So of course the West Coast would easily go to Bernie Sanders, just because of the fact that he does extremely well on the West Coast, and that's pretty much a given for all Democrats. Let's go through the safe Republican states. Utah is safe Republican against John Kasich. There's not really much to say about Missouri. I'll leave as a toss-up because that one is a special case. It is a toss-up between John Kasich and Bernie Sanders. Ohio is safe red, obviously. Indiana, that one is safe red as well. Minnesota, that one's safe blue. The southern states, Georgia, actually Louisiana and Arkansas are closer than you would expect. Kasich is only ahead by 8.4% and 9.2% in Arkansas and Louisiana in polling, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to trust the polling because that's the only information we have. We can't really say Kasich will or won't do based off no information. That's where I base most of my predictions off of. Polling, and sure, polling was wrong once in 2016. That doesn't automatically make it wrong for every single election. Polling was spot on in the French election. Polling is not always wrong because it was wrong in one election. So that's something we're going to need to realize. Just because an approval rating poll doesn't show in your favor for the president doesn't mean it's fake news, and it doesn't mean that it's a fake poll. It just means that the majority of Americans don't support our president, just like the majority of Americans didn't support George Bush or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton at a certain period in time. There's always time for a president to recoup, and just because he's down right now doesn't necessarily mean it's fake at all, whatsoever. So, I've been seeing a lot of comments saying, why are you using fake news? Well, first of all, there's no such thing as fake news. There's a thing called biased news. And second of all, I trust the mainstream media a lot more than I would trust Breitbart or one YouTube channel telling me that an underground poll shows Trump ahead with surging numbers. Like, no, there's nothing to go. There's no basis behind that. So I'm just filling in the Northeast while I talk for a minute. New Hampshire, that one would be safe blue. Kasich, Sanders is ahead solidly by double digits there in polling. Maine's 2nd congressional district, he's ahead by 9.8. So I'm going to give that one to Sanders because I don't think Kasich has the same appeal Trump had that he did over Hillary Clinton. But Kasich would destroy Hillary Clinton in a general election. But this is Bernie Sanders, so he's somewhat more competitive. In Missouri, Kasich is only ahead by 2.8, which is why I'm leaving it as a toss-up. Virginia and North Carolina are both leaning red, but I'm leaving them as a toss-up. And in Florida, that one is a pure toss-up. Right now, polling has Kasich ahead by 0.1%. In New Mexico, that one's safe blue because of Latino turnout. In Arizona, that one is a toss-up, and Colorado is a toss-up. And actually, Colorado, I think Sanders would choose Hickenlooper as his running mate, so I'm going to choose that one as, if not, Tulsi Gabbard, and I think that'll help him in Colorado as well. So I'm going to leave that one for him. Hawaii, obviously, safe Democrat, and Alaska, safe Republican. So let's go through some of these numbers. So we have a general election outlook. We have, in the general election, we have Bernie Sanders ahead with 48.7% of the vote to John Kasich's 41.2% of the vote. So, essentially, Bernie Sanders would take the popular vote unless the undecided voters decide to go for John Kasich. And that's exactly what happened for Trump in the 2016 general election. It showed Hillary Clinton ahead. The popular vote polls were actually spot on. It's just they didn't factor the number of undecideds going for Trump. So really, it's all about where the undecided vote would go, and I think that a lot of it would go to John Kasich. I think that's a lot of Trump supporters opting out of that poll because John Kasich is the Republican nominee and it's not Donald Trump. So let's just keep going through this map. In the state of Pennsylvania, it's currently a tie according to Real Clear Politics. A Quinnipiac poll shows Kasich ahead by 6. The NBC Washington just shows Sanders ahead by 6. So the RCP average right now is a tie. When things are a tie and we've had Republican turnout that we didn't expect, and the polls were a little bit off and skewed in favor of the Democrats, well, I'm going to give that one to John Kasich just based off that, because of the fact that, sure, the poll was wrong, but it was just a small favor, and if it's a tie, so if there's a tie, then I'm going to give it to the Republican just because of the fact that it skews a little bit in favors for Democrats. They usually poll more Democrats than they do Republicans, which is why some of them may be completely different. Like some approval rating polls, like I said before, it's not fake news, but some of them are wrong. I mean, some do poll more Democrats. One showed 70-30, disapprove 70%, and I knew that one was off. But the average is the one that you really need to watch out for, because those are generally right. And if it's an average, then if it's an average tie, I'll give it to the Republican just because this 2016 election skewed in favor of the Republicans on Election Day compared to where it was expected to the day before Election Day. So we have the 2016 map of Sanders versus Kasich. So in Nevada, he's ahead by 2.8, so I'll give him the state of Nevada, just because Democrats outperformed polls in Nevada. In Arizona, that one I don't really see Sanders turning out voters. Kasich would be perceived as not the Republican they don't want to vote for the same way they didn't want to vote for him in 2016. But growing demographics really hurt Trump here as well. Essentially, I think Sanders could be able to flip it against Trump, but I don't think he'll be able to flip it against John Kasich. So I'm going to give that one to Kasich. We have Missouri, Iowa. Iowa is actually surprisingly blue. So Sanders is ahead by 5.1. So I'm gonna trust Sanders with that state. I'm gonna give him Wisconsin and Michigan just because of the fact that he won these over surprisingly in the primary. In Michigan, he's ahead by 7.9, and in Wisconsin, he's ahead by 4.7. And that was before the Democratic convention, so I think he would have gotten a bounce after that. Really, Hillary Clinton's peak was after the DNC when she got plus 12 in Michigan. So Sanders does better than Kasich did. Does better than Clinton did nationally against John Kasich. So I think that with that DNC boost, I think it could help him. In the state of Colorado, that one was actually a pure tie, but Kasich was ahead by 0.01%. So I'm giving that one to Sanders because I think that if he chooses a progressive nominee or he chooses Hickenlooper, then it would go to him. We have Missouri up next, which is the polling average shows Kasich ahead by it just shows Kasich ahead by 3%. So we have Sanders at 46.9% to 49.6% for John Kasich. That's close to 50%, so I'm going to give that one to Kasich just because of the fact that I think that on Election Day, it'll eventually go out and vote for John Kasich. Now, sorry about that. We're looking at Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida to decide the election. Really, it's all going to come down to who's going to be able to flip each state. Virginia, that one shows Kasich ahead right now. But then again, this state did vote Democratic. I think it would come back to the Sanders campaign on Election Day. But I think polling may be a little bit off on that one. Like in Nevada, Trump was ahead in polling. He didn't win the state, obviously. So now we have Kasich versus Sanders. And I'm going to give him North Carolina just because of the fact that... I'm going to give Kasich North Carolina, sorry. Just because of the fact that John Kasich did tremendously compared to where... does tremendously against Hillary Clinton in polling, and Donald Trump doesn't do well against Hillary Clinton in polling. And if he does have that Trump extra skew, I think he could win North Carolina against Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, just because of the fact that Bernie Sanders would be perceived worse than Hillary Clinton was in North Carolina. First of all, he's a progressive. the moderate Democrats will probably not vote for him. If they do vote for him, the conservative Democrats most definitely won't vote for him. If we're looking at where it really matters, he will get the Green Party vote, but he also won't get any Republican vote. I don't think there's pretty much any Republican who would really be okay with seeing a far left agenda being put forward when there's someone who has a much better agenda, and that's John Kasich. That's just my opinion, sorry. But if they're viewing it, they would view it as more of a better platform. And Florida ultimately comes down to, I'm giving it to John Kasich. Polling shows a tie, and I think that on Election Day, everyone was shocked, even with Latino turnout. And Bernie Sanders is not the candidate to get out Latino turnout. Sure, he can get out the young vote, but if John Kasich keeps his cool at debates, he won't be perceived as that radical right winger that the left paints Donald Trump as. He'll be perceived as a calm and worthy opponent, just like Mitt Romney was. And the only reason why Mitt Romney lost because a minority was running. The first black president was running on the ticket at the top for re-election. So that's the only reason why Mitt Romney lost, in my view. Sure, he made some mistakes, but if this was a general election campaign that didn't have any play, if people just voted based off platforms, I think Mitt Romney would have won that election decisively. So I'm going to upload a few more times today because school's starting, so I'm going to start uploading a couple more per day just until school starts on September 6th. So we've got 4 more days to go. Actually, September 5th for me, so 3 more days to go. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.